What's going on, FA Nation? John Impemba here with James Grande, bringing you the Fantasy Alarm NBA DFS live stream for Tuesday's main slate. James, you're the guy on the playbook today. You did all the heavy lifting. How you feeling about things?
I feel good, man. I mean, we don't have a ton of value, but there has been a ton of news this afternoon, particularly in Washington, with the news that Thomas Bryant's going to be out for an extended period of time, with the news that Mo Wagner is going to be out. So the Washington front court persists of three guys that are about 6'5", 6'6", and 6'7", probably on platform shoes.
Yeah.
So I mean, it is going
6'8" in the old NBA.
In the old NBA, Isaac Bonga might be 7'3". We're not sure, but it is the new NBA where everyone gets measured in their socks, and they're going to be hurting because Orlando runs out three guys from small forward to power forward that are 6'9". Isaac might be 7 foot. It might be like that Kevin Durant thing where he's 7 feet. He says he's 6'9".
At the very least, he's got a reach that is tremendous.
Right. Aaron Gordon 6'9", and then Ken Burch, who's almost 7 feet tall. So it is going to be a nightmare tonight for Washington. But that's opened things up. That's been the primary afternoon. We still have some potential news to break, like JaMychal Green later. We're
all waiting on, I think. So
it is a quite a popular play. If we want to give a little preview of our ownership projections, JaMychal is in the top 5 on both FanDuel and DraftKings in terms of ownership projections tonight. So he is going to be popular if he plays.
Yep. Some key games we're looking in here, just in terms of overall point spreads. Orlando, Washington, 229. Even with those injuries right now, it still went up 2 points from when it opened. Still only a 1 point spread. So we're looking competitive and high scoring. That's exactly what Washington, sort of playing. You have Dallas and New Orleans, 233.5, a 4.5 point spread. I think you're going to see a lot of ownership in that game. There's some really nice priced plays that we're definitely looking at. And then, of course, Luka Doncic is there. Houston, San Antonio, it's 234. San Antonio's getting 7. No LMA tonight. Already been ruled out. So you do wonder, is Houston going to be able to run them out of the gym? They haven't been, a great defensive team, but they've been putting up a lot of points on teams. Lakers, Denver, only 208 total. Well, that's a favor to Sean Mitchell. He's been touting that game all day to James and I. Hopefully we'll see if that comes through. And then our late night hammer tonight, Portland and Clippers. Should be a good one. We do usually like Portland better at home than on the road, but in terms of star power, you have George, you have Leonard, McCollum, Lillard, Whiteside, you name it. So a good game to go ahead and target there to finish off tonight.
Yeah, solid games all around, and it is funny that Sean's so invested in that 208 Denver LA game. But at the same time, again, I'll say this till I'm blue in the face. That's how you win a tournament. That's how you take down tournaments. You target games like that because there is star power on both sides of the game. And if it goes over by a significant margin, you'll win a ton of money. So I get it completely from the tournament standpoint.
Yep, for sure. Let's jump out to it, though. Let's go into your playbook. You always start out, your playbooks with guys that you like that didn't make the playbook. I'll just run down some names. If you want to talk about any of them, go for it. But you have Lillard, Beverly, Luke Kennard, Josh Hart, who I like tonight, Paul George, Kevin Porter Jr., Tim Hardaway Jr., Davis Bertans, who I think probably is more in your playbook, now given all the injury news now, JaMychal Green and Vika Zubac. Any of those that you didn't put in the playbook you want to kind of highlight right now?
Bertans, clearly. Number one, first and foremost, he's starting. He's already been extremely good, playing about 28 minutes a game, averaging about 28 fantasy points per game over his last 5. We highlighted it at the beginning. There's 3 front court members for, could we see Bradley Beal, the power forward tonight, where they're just running out?
Positionless basketball.
Right. But seriously, they just don't have able bodies. So we should see Bertans play heavy minutes. I'm not saying the matchup is good, but just opportunity alone, he's going to be on the floor for 35 minutes, and he's been productive. If his shot is falling, we could be looking at a big game. So I think Bertans is someone I highlight. I'm going to highlight JaMychal Green if he's active. We already, again, really highly projected own playing. I think Doc Rivers finally realizes, all right, I just got to play my best players, and Jermichael Green is clearly one of those guys. He spaces the floor for them really well, and clears the lane. Like Zubac just clogs the lane for Paul George and Kawhi to operate. I think Kennard is a really good tournament play. I think Patrick Beverley is a sneaky tournament play. Damian Lillard gets the defense on the flip side of that game, but he's $8,400 on DraftKings, so like it's something you have to consider.
I agree with you. Like I said, I like Josh Hart. I'm curious whether or not he makes it into the starting lineup or not with Kendrick Williams ruled out there. Obviously, there's no favors if you're just talking about that front court play. Because if they do keep him on the bench, they may move Etuan Moore into the starting lineup. And again, we're starved of value. Moore probably gets a slight bump anyways, I think, just given sort of he plays that shooting guard, small forward role for them. But he's $3,700. So if he moves into the starting lineup, I like it. If he comes off the bench and Hart is starting, I like it. So either or. But obviously, if Hart is more involved overall, he gets a boost for me in that matchup against Dallas. So I'm a big fan there. Plus, they're starting Tim Hardaway Jr. And that defense has historically been atrocious. So, but let's go into the guys you do have in the playbook. He's the cover boy. We basically gushed about him last night on the podcast. He's the guy that I'm putting in all of my lineups tonight, and that is Luka Doncic. He's probably going to be chalk. Again, high ownership projections for him tonight that we have going up against the Pelicans. You just put he's he's the top play of the slate for sure. Tell us, you don't need to tell us, but why are you on him tonight?
I mean, it kind of just goes without saying. 62 over his last 5. It's the best spot against point guards in the league, and it's a massive pace-up spot. I mean, it just checks every box. The price is obviously up there, but like he's paying it off. So, I mean, and honestly, I know people are gonna say, "Oh, it's tough to fit him in the lineups." It's not. It's not as tough as we think. Because
it's probably tougher on FanDuel. But
we can play there are a lot of mid-tier guys that we can now play, especially in cash games. We can play the Washington guys. I know it's scary because Orlando is very good defensively, but Hachimura, we're not looking for 40 out of him. His price tag is very fair.
And he has to play 38 minutes unless he
has to. I mean, and there obviously there is potential for him to foul out very fast. But he'll be guarding Khem Birch, so it's not like it's like a scary defensive matchup for him. If it was Vooch, that's a complete different story. Bertans, we have a lot of really good plays. Guys at this position, a lot of the guys I have in the playbook outside of Doncic are mid to lower tier. I did put Jamal. I ended up putting Jamal Murray in the playbook, who Sean is gushing over all day.
Also in the starting 5, Justin.
Also in the starting 5 for Fensty. And you know what? They're right. He has a 70-point ceiling, and we saw it. There is volatility. There is a low total. The Lakers have been a top 5 defense in the NBA. The pace is not great. They are getting a slight pace-up spot because they're the slowest paced team in the NBA. So I do think there's upside for Jamal in tournaments, but I love this next tier. You talked about Markelle Fultz on the podcast quite a bit. And it's true. He's playing about 30 minutes and he's giving us about 30 fantasy points. We were 1 assist shy of 6.5x the other night. So Fultz is a great mid-tier play. I love Lonzo Ball. He's going to be really popular tonight, but if you're getting 30-plus minutes of Lonzo Ball in this matchup against Luka Doncic on the flip side, it's very hard not to like him at 5'4", 6'2" on FanDuel because his ability to stuff box scores is just what he does. He doesn't have to score you 20 points to get to 5x or 6x or be in winning tournament lineups. Kendrick Nunn is going to be really popular tonight, I suspect. And our ownership projections don't reflect that. But do
you have any hesitation knowing that Lowry is back?
Like you said, what is our limitations on Lowry? I don't necessarily because
I'm curious just because they moved him right into the starting lineup. They didn't take any sort of cautious approach with them where usually when guys are limited, they come off the bench, they'll play whatever and get their feet wet. They just threw him back into the starting lineup. It was a fractured hand, so it wasn't or finger, wasn't it? Right? It was nothing knee, foot, ankle, whatever related. So I wonder if they're if his conditioning's fine because he's been able to run, he just hasn't been able to shoot. So maybe Lowry is going to go ahead and play 30 minutes tonight. Now, we have him conservatively. I think I put him at 23 minutes, projection today. But again, this isn't an injury where I feel like his conditioning should be a factor. But Lowry has typically been a more hounding defender. I mean, there's earlier days, maybe not anymore. But does that worry you none at all?
Slightly, but we're also talking about a price point that is very exploitable here, under 5K on both sites, and we know that Goran Dragic is out, so there is usage to go around. This is the guy who leads the Heat in usage with Dragic off the floor. It's not Jimmy Butler, it's not Tyler Hero, it's not Bam Adebayo, it's Kendrick Nunn. The kid is very confident. I don't know if you listened to or read the interview he had with Shams. I mean, he said he's the rookie of the year. He flat out said he is the rookie of the year. I mean, he's not shy to shoot. Without Dragic, I kind of suspect him to run with the second. I mean, we don't know what it's going to be, but he's going to see more run. I'm not worried about Dion Waiters being active at all. It literally doesn't deter me at all. It's just a price point play that I'm willing to go to for tournaments. And then I think Derrick Rose is sneaky tonight because nobody's been worse against point guard over the last 2 weeks than Cleveland. And Derrick Rose, for what it's worth, has only averaged 21 minutes over his last 5 games, but he's averaged 26.5 fantasy points. If we can get 25 minutes out of Derrick Rose, I mean, we could be looking at 35, 40 fantasy point upside in this really juicy matchup. No one's going to play him. Right. So I think Derrick Rose, I think the Pistons kind of as a unit are a really sneaky offense coming off 134 actual point game against San Antonio.
Yeah, no, I won't argue with you too much there. I think that's a good call. Who else are you kind of targeting? As we go into the shooting guard here, what's your top plays?
Harden, I think profiles in all formats. The highest total on the board. He scored 60 actual in 3 quarters. I think you could play him in all formats. Bradley Beal is obviously firmly in play. I think he works in game stacks. I think he works in cash. I think you can play Bradley Beal in really all formats. 8,600 is a price tag that you and I really like.
I do.
Even in a tough matchup against Orlando, it's just there's a really nice floor-ceiling combination here for Beal.
And the minutes are just always there regardless.
40. He's going to play 40 tonight. There's no doubt. He might not sit. He could legitimately go.
We've seen that before, where he's played all but 2 minutes in a game.
He's like, Coach, get me out, Brooks. I need to take I need to go to the bathroom real quick, and then he'll be back in. I think DeMar DeRozan, perfect for all formats. I really like the Spurs tonight, just based on pace. Houston is a terrible defensive team. I think DeRozan perfect for all formats. Evan Fournier perfect in cash games, tournaments too. We talked about last night. I think he's good for all formats, and I love Tyler Hero. For tournaments, he gets a big usage bump. He gets the biggest bump. None has the highest usage rate. Hero sees the biggest bump in terms of usage. 2.5% increase with Dragic off the floor. I think he's going to see big minutes. Another guy I'm not worried about with Dion Waiters being active. Dion Waiters and Spoelstra have not gone off to a good foot. Why does Spoelstra suddenly need to play Dion Waiters? Just because Dragic is hurt, he has a lot of guard depth. I mean, there's Winslow, there's Duncan Robinson, there's Jimmy Butler, who I have in the playbook, who's 5 for tournaments. I mean, they have tons of guards that they don't need to even have Waiters sniff the court. But that's who I'm looking at shooting guard.
Yeah, I like it. I think Fournier and DeRozan are probably 2 really strong mid-tier guys for sure. And again, I'm looking to play Luka, so I'm not in on Harden, but not to say you shouldn't consider him. So I think all those guys are strong. If we go to small forward, you have James, you have Leonard. Again, that game in Denver, it's a low total. Of course, LeBron's going to do LeBron, and that's all fine and dandy. But I think I'm kind of looking at the guys below them, especially Jonathan Isaac, who you and I just love just in general. And then you just look at what he's going to look at the matchup now. There's no Vucevic, and he's been killing it with him off the floor this year. Again, we're getting him on DraftKings at 6,900, perfect spot. 8K on FanDuel, maybe a little bit tough to spend there, but I'm loving Isaac a lot tonight, and I'm high on Orlando. I talked about it on the podcast, anyways. But him and then Will Barton below him, gone for 40 fantasy points now in like 3 straight games. Hard to ignore that production.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about Isaac at 8K is we know we're going to get peripherals production in terms of steals and blocks. So, like, now he's going up against, very short players in terms, like, comparison to his height. So I don't think it's crazy to pay 8K. I mean, if we're going to get a low ownership because he's 8K, I'm perfectly fine with it. I know we're looking for 40, but I mean, who's to say he doesn't grab 15 rebounds alone and then gives us 4 or 5 blocks / steals? And then, if he gets us 15 points, I mean, we're looking at a 50 fantasy point game and something that could win us tournaments. So I think he's fine at 8K. I mean, obviously we love him at 6'9", but I love Barton too for tournaments, 40 straight in 3 games. Rudy Gay, I mean, 70% projection for ownership in FanDuel. I think that probably changes a little bit with the Bertans news. I think if we get an update right before lock, that would be slightly lower. I still think he's going to be chalky. And I mentioned when I was talking about DeRozan, I think the Spurs are in a good spot for cash and tournaments and game stacks and whatever. I know they just got blown out, but there's no LaMarcus Aldridge, and there's so much usage to go around. We've seen Rudy Gay play 30 minutes in 2 games ago when they kept it close. So we should probably project him at that if this game stays close. I really like him I really like him in stacks and cash, like not as a kind of a one-off, but I like him in a game stack. I like him in cash. I think Brandon Ingram is fine. I think Brandon Ingram for all formats. We get a 40-point floor out of Brandon Ingram. We get 40 minutes and a 40-point floor. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And then Justice Winslow, another guy. We don't know what that unit. We don't know how the Heat are going to distribute minutes and whatnot, but we do know that Spoelstra loves Justice Winslow. We do know Justice Winslow's probably going to play 30 minutes with Dragic out, whether that is in the starting lineup or off the bench. I mean, if he fills Dragic's role, I mean, who's to say he can't double-double here in Dragic's role, pairing him with Tyler Hero, coming off the bench or something like that. So I think Justice Winslow in a really nice spot. If you want to technically count him as a small forward, because it would kind of be a matchup. It would be a weird matchup for the Raptors to put Lowry on him. I think Winslow would present some problems there. They've given up a lot of points to opposing small forwards, they being the Raptors, 9th most in the league. So I think that's something to consider when factoring in your Winslow. He's really cheap, too, $4,900 over on DraftKings.
Yeah, for sure. If we go over to power forward, if you listen again to the podcast, James and I really had a tough time kind of reviewing this one. I think there are some obvious plays people will go to, and ownership sort of jumps out at you, particularly Kristaps Porzingis. I think everybody's going to be definitely looking at him today. Good price tag on DraftKings at 65, even on FanDuel 81. That's certainly doable. And then now Aaron Gordon, I think, becomes more in play than I begrudgingly want to admit to. Again, just given all the injuries, everybody who's out, this is a spot where he should have success. Typically when I feel that way about him, he doesn't. But I said, in conversations you and I when we were doing our prep work today, that I feel like there's like 10, 12 plus rebound potential here for Gordon, for Isaac, just being on the floor for the minutes they are and their matchups that they're going to have. If he can just be aggressive and not, foul, miss shot, like he can go off. It just, the price tag at 57 and 62 on FanDuel and DraftKings is going to be very difficult to ignore today. I know we don't have high ownership for him on DraftKings. FanDuel 25% right now. I think that's probably pretty fair. I
mean, look, Rui Hachimura becomes the cash guy at this position, so I think that makes it easier for us on FanDuel, with the news of everyone for Washington being out. So I think that's where you go in cash. But you're right. I mean, Gordon's a really good tournament play. He is just way too volatile for cash. Like, even at this price tag, which is super appealing, 57, 62, I think they're both really, really appealing, and I think there's upside. But it's still just, there's such a low floor because Isaac can do what he's doing. We've seen the increased role from Raquel Fultz. We've seen Fournier just dominate this off. I mean, he's taking control of the offense. So, like, as much as we love Gordon's upside and we like him in space, I mean, this is going to be a really high-tempo game. Pump the brakes on Gordon and cash. That is my words of advice. I think there are better plays in cash games like Hachimura, like Kristaps Porzingis. I mean, I think we actually said that he was likely going to be one of the highest owned players, if not the highest owned player on the slate, and 50% ownership essentially on DK at 6,500. So I'd rather go there than Gordon in like a cash. I know Porzingis is not cash generally, but I mean, opportunity against the Pelicans is
so
definitely
hard to
there.
Just, That's why I think that all the ownership's going to go there. And we talked about this on the podcast last night, how even though, this game with the Wizards and Orlando is one of the highest game totals, it's competitive, we don't think there's going to really be any ownership on this one. We think a lot of people are going to be going to this Pelicans and Dallas game. They're going to
I think that changes. Don't you think that changes? I think that changes quite a bit, knowing that Bertans and Hachimura are literally their only options in the front court. Like, I still don't think Beal's ownership changes. Beal's ownership is going to be Beal's, but like Hachimura, Bertans, just considering there's literally nobody else. Even Isaac Bonga to an extent, because
I could see Bonga maybe getting a bump just because the min price ownership there on it, or price tag on him, that on a slate where we are just starved of value. When he played 19 minutes the other day against the Clippers, and that one again, there was the blowout, but 17 fantasy points. The thing is, like, we saw him start earlier this year and he did nothing, like absolutely nothing. So, is he going to run out there with the starters and get any usage whatsoever? Like, what do we need out of him for him to, be effective? I know at 3K, you only need 15 fantasy points for 5X, and, you can live. We made money last night with Dennis Smith Jr. giving us 11. So, like, is that doable again today on today's slate? Possibly. But is that really where you want to go, with your lineup? And that's the question. So, hopefully we'll get news that there's like, JaMychal Green does play or something. And we can figure it out. Daniel House just ruled out. I know he's not in your playbook, and neither is Ben McLemore.
Yikes! $5,100 is
$5,100 for Benny Mac. I don't think we can go there, but I mean, again, he's gonna go ahead and get usage. He's gonna start probably, and Austin Rivers is gonna be a guy off the bench that's gonna play a lot of minutes, and there's more value for Rivers there at $4,000. Hate all of it, but guys that are at least in the conversation.
Yeah, game total. I mean, that game total, game environment is really enticing. So, I mean, if you want to play McLemore in tournaments, if you want to play Austin Rivers, I can't fault you. Isaac Bonga, by the way, 7 starts this year, 21 minutes, 4.7 points, 3.9 rebounds, 1.7 assists per game. But, John, that about gets us to 15 fantasy points, and that's what we're looking for. So, I mean, look, and it's one steal per game.
I should play Troy Brown coming off the bench now.
I think Troy Brown makes for a more interesting option because you got to consider, like, David. Is he going to essentially fill the Davis Bertans role? I mean, right. Davis Bertans playing 28 minutes off the bench. Now Davis Bertans slides into the rotation. Who is playing? Not necessarily those 28 minutes, but who's playing his role?
Right.
I think Troy Brown could be interesting.
It has to be Brown, and also again, just to roll out the rest of the Washington basically roster here. Sean has mentioned him in his value vault before. I think I don't know if he's in it today or not. But in the past, he has. But Jordan McRae has been a guy that's been coming off their bench, filling in. Basically subbing for Beal, but 20 plus minutes, pretty much coming off the bench for them, and 5 of the last 6 games, taking 10 plus shots in a lot of those. He's a scorer. That's what we know about Jordan McRae. He's a guy that comes off the bench and shoots. So he's $3,800 on DraftKings. So for star for value, maybe the cheapy Washington guys are somewhere with them. The chalk goes stay in that game.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's a tournament play only, obviously, but it's really not a bad option if you're making multiple lineups. It's not like if you're building one lineup, I'm not gonna roll Jordan McRae out. But if you're building multiple lineups, I think Jordan McRae works perfect.
Yeah, I agree with you. Let's go to center. Andre Drummond's there against Cleveland. His usage rate and fantasy points per minute have still been solid even with Blake. Blake has been very bad. This is a spot where, I feel like often I shy away from centers against Cleveland because of Tristan Thompson and Kevin Love being there. But, Drummond has found ways to still have success. Are you paying the price for him tonight? He's in the playbook, but do you have actual considerations for like a main lineup rostering?
I mean, probably not. Like on DraftKings, I think. I think on both sides, a lot of lineups are going to gear towards Jakob Poeltl. A lot of lineups are going to go down, and you're going to play Jackson Hayes. On DraftKings, you can obviously play guys like Hachimura at center. You can play Whiteside in tournaments. You can play Capella in tournaments. So, like, yes, to an extent. Like, I think it's a very contrarian upside play because he was well on his way to 50. I mentioned the playbook. Like, he would have had 50 again in that game easily if it stayed competitive against San Antonio. And Cleveland has slowly been getting worse against center position. So, like, I think there is merit. But, like, I just prefer spending up on other guys today. I prefer spending up on Luka. I prefer Harden. I prefer Beal at 8,600 and, like, kind of more fair and balanced in, like, a game stack environment. I actually really like Kawhi in that late night game at 8,700 on DK. So, like, there's just, like, better options for me. Yeah. Personally, and I like the opportunity cost on guys like Jakob Poeltl tonight because he's going to play 30 minutes if this game stays competitive.
Poeltl was one of the first guys I threw in a lineup take because, again, solid for value. And it looks like based off ownership, a lot of people are on there. Houston has struggled against like traditional centers, like guys who can just kind of plant their feet in the paint and he can go ahead and, get the rebounds, he can block some shots. They're always driving into the lane on him. Foul trouble can be a little bit of a concern. But again, like just limiting that depth, they don't have much behind Poeltl. They could go, Trey Lyles there if they want to, but Lyles is also going to sub at power forward. So I don't know. I like Poeltl a lot as well.
I mean, Houston just gushes a lot of fantasy points to everyone, and we're going to get a lot of. I mean, it's a huge pace-up spot for San Antonio, too. We have a huge total. They're the second highest implied points team on the board. Like, everything just kind of lines up for him. Yeah. I think he's perfectly fine in cash. I think his ownership obviously shows that. And the pivot's Jackson Hayes. And then, again, we mentioned Ivica Zubac. If JaMychal Green doesn't play, I mean, Zubac is going to be on the floor more because, he's just going to be – whether or not he's the primary center, because ultimately, whether he starts or not, Montrezl Harrell is the primary center. Right. But JaMychal Green's been taking a lot of the backup center minutes. If Green's not on the floor, then Zubac becomes quite interesting as the quote-unquote backup center. So I think there's upside there. And John, we've always talked about, for the last couple of years, we've talked about attacking the Clippers at the center position. Hassan Whiteside is 8,300, and I know that's on FanDuel. I know that's crazy to think about paying, but he had 10 blocks and he had 15 rebounds. And we talked about on the podcast, he had 48 fantasy points on blocks and rebounds alone his last game. I mean, at some point, that's something to consider, especially attacking the Clippers. I mean, he's going to have a distinct height advantage over Montrezl Harrell. I'm cool with getting him at 2% ownership in tournaments. Plus, if you don't have any other late night exposure, I think that's a nice way to get some. If you want to play if you really are really damn, I don't have any late night hammer exposure, I think Hassan Whiteside is a perfect route to go.
All right. Yeah, I don't hate that either. I'll also throw out Dwight Powell, $4,000. Just again, he played 32 minutes the other night. For them, he can get you some boards. He can score a little bit. He's a very efficient shooter. Usually just hanging around the rim for the most part. So you can throw him out there if you want. It's just another punt play in that game, being matched up against either Jahlil Okafor or Jackson Hayes, and that could be a good matchup for him. So the other is just value as well, worth mentioning.
We definitely need the 11-shot Dwight Powell and not the 1-shot Dwight Powell that we got against Houston.
Yeah, well, I mean, when Luka's taking 35, it's definitely hard for everybody else to shoot. But no, I agree with you. We need some offensive putbacks is what we're looking for.
Absolutely down with that.
All right, any final thoughts here before we jump off?
No, I'm pretty good. I mean, 23 minutes to lock.
All righty, everybody. Straw Mitchell's in chat. We'll be in there as well. Everything's out. Lineups, playbook, starting five, value vault. So we're just waiting on some injury news. Hopefully we find out about JaMychal Green before roster lock, because that'll be pretty nice of the Clippers to do so. So we'll catch you later, everybody, and good luck.